tell you the earth is flat.
The world is getting crazier. People are acting more and more insane. The end of the world is tomorrow. Tomorrow. See, there's only one thing to do when the world is falling apart. Listen to Basil and Gonz as they discuss this week's news and events through the lens of Bible prophecy. You are listening to Canary Cry News Talk.
Hey everybody, you are listening to Canary Cry News Talk. Today is somewhere in October, between October 15th and October 20th. We don't know exactly when this will go out, but we're glad you're here. This is the Canary Cry News Talk Q&A special. And Razzle Dazzle, I'm your best buddy Basil.
And this is Gonz, your favorite Asian provocateur for Christ. And we're not looking at the egregious today. Not today, yeah.
Yes, this is a little bit of a funky episode. As if you watch the live stream, you listen to the show, you know what's going on. Gonz, at this very moment, is out glamping.
Oh, yeah.
Somewhere. We're not going to tell you where.
Yeah. As long as the place doesn't...
Are you excited?
I am, as long as it doesn't completely burn down before I get there.
Are you having fun out there? This will be day maybe 1 or 4 of you glamping. And you're out there. You've been cooking some hot dogs. You've been playing in the woods with your babies. You've been... have you seen Sasquatch yet?
I don't know. I would need to communicate with my current self in the future as of now in my present moment. It's a.
Do you want me to pre-record some Sasquatch calls for you that you can play out in the forest?
Sure, I'll bring my portable speaker and I will see if I can conjure the Bigfoot.
You'll either have a Bigfoot sighting or you'll be somebody else's Bigfoot sighting, as we talked about.
Well, yeah, I mean, my facial hair, I am pretty fuzzy right now, so it could...
Fuzzy Gonz, everybody.
It could go that way.
Yeah. So just to sort of explain to everybody, obviously, this is not your normal Canary Cry News Talk episode, but Gonz, against all odds, has found a way to take a week off, which he very much deserves. And he's out glamping with the family, and we're all very happy for you, Gonz. But this does create some complications. I don't know if we need to go too deep into it, but technologically, it would be extremely difficult for me to keep the show going as normal with you gone. Not impossible, but it just didn't seem like the thing that we are going to do this time. So instead, we are going to be recording some, I'm not going to call them filler episodes or something like that.
Oh, there's plenty of good substance we'll get into.
Lots of good stuff. Yeah. We're just creating some pre-recorded content to put out while we take just a quick little break, a week off. Yeah. So there you go. That's what we're going to be doing. We will have a number of different kinds of episodes to give you something to stay connected to the world of Canary Cry News Talk. But you will be back. We'll be back to our normal schedule on Friday, the 22nd.
Yep.
Is that correct?
That is the theory.
Yeah. So hang with us. And we know that it can be a little traumatizing to have the schedule messed up like this, but we hope that this gets you through the week and that you return to us when we get back to our normal schedule. Yep. It's always a little bit of a bummer to mix things up a little bit because we inevitably just lose some listeners forever.
But, I know, it tends to happen. But the flip side is, this could be the first time somebody is listening. They want to get to know us with a Q&A first before they entrust 17 hours a week to sitting with us and analyzing news. That number
increasing. Just keeps getting
eventually it'll be more than the available hours of the week. I'll be like 570 hours every week.
The sad part is if we added one episode a week, we would be up to like 17 hours a week. Like, it's not even that crazy to say we would be up to 17 hours. So yes, there you go. This will be a little bit less formal of an episode. We have some, we're going to be doing some other stuff, not reading directly from the news, but hopefully it's something for you to listen to. If this is the first episode ever of Canary Cry News Talk that you're tuning into, this is not the normal show. So if you want to hear what the normal show is like, go back to episode 400.
Click on a number.
Anyone with a number. This one, I believe we decided we're not going to number these ones as normal episodes. Yeah. So there you go. If this is your first time, this is not the normal show. Don't be afraid. You can go back to any numbered episode and experience the glory that is regular Canary Cry News Talk.
Yep.
But today, Gonz, we're just going to take a little bit of time, and we put a post out on Twitter last night, actually, asking for, Q&A questions that people might have for Gonz and I. It could be regarding anything. We don't do a whole lot of like answering questions on the show. Sometimes we do during the producer segment. But we thought we'd throw it out there for anybody who may have had a burning question for us that we've never had the opportunity to respond to. And it was a little bit of a mixed reaction, Gonz. I have mixed feelings about the types of questions that we are getting, but we are going to be taking kind of a random sampling of some of these questions, and we'll have fun together. Anything? Oh, yes, we did these are just the questions that came in literally in like a 12-hour period. No, maybe 15-hour period.
Something like that. Less than a day for sure.
Less than a day. And we just did it on Twitter. I'm realizing we could have put this all over the place, but we just didn't. I guess maybe we kind of just forgot about it.
We are not good at doing these, especially
social
on a time
media
crunch
stuff.
Yeah.
But we're going to do what we are best at, and that is winging it. So anything you want to say about this, Gonz, before we get in?
I don't think so. I mean, it's nice to do something different, a little refreshing.
Yeah, this will be interesting. Oh, and just like a heads up, we're not just going to be doing 3 Q&A episodes. We don't think.
Yeah, we don't think. We do have something planned from something we had planned a long time ago that we haven't fulfilled. So maybe something like that, and then some other stuff. So yeah, we'll see how that all plays out. By the time
it's a variety week. It's the Gonz with the Wind variety week. I've just named it.
Okay.
Oh gosh, we got to get this over to the calendar producers so they can put Gonz with the Wind variety week. There was Baby Week, which
it's pretty close.
Hope made it up. May or may not have.
Yeah, Baby Week is the end of October. So
oh my gosh, we are almost exactly lined up with Baby Week, aren't we?
He turns 1 in like 2 weeks as of this recording. A couple weeks.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Wow. This is like becoming a tradition.
Yeah, there's the scale time clock earth flat dome thing that we're on. It repeats in patterns and seems to have a time reference.
Let's get into it. People get it. Okay, here we go. This happens once a year, people, where we have to sort of wing it for a week, and this is what we're doing this year. Okay, did you have one you wanted to start off with?
Just because it's in reference to News Talk specifically, and I think that's a good place to start with the question.
Can I just share my heart real quick?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
No, Basil, you cannot share your heart on your podcast.
This is not what this show is for. You keep that to yourself. My instinct is telling me we need to start with an easier one, and not one of the hardcore ones.
Hey, you know what? That could be the Holy Spirit leading the way. Let's go with the
the I had a feeling you were going to pick a kind of heavy one.
Why are you so annoying?
Heavy, bro. Okay, I'm going to start out with this one.
Okay.
This one comes from Good Cheer in Idaho on Twitter. It's at Calvinist Debun 2 is his name or their name. and this was put on your part of the thread on your Twitter feed. Mm-hmm. And the question is, Gonz and Basil, why don't you both leave the communist state of California? I love this question. I love it there's many layers to why I love this question. The first layer is I don't live in California. I haven't lived in California for so many years. But of course, that's the weird thing about podcasting is like a lot of our stuff is eternal, is evergreen. And so people can listen to an episode where I did live in California. And maybe that's sort of the reference point he's going off of. But I actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I've never lived in California since starting News Talk.
Yeah, and you've been an active recruiter for me to get out of California as well.
Yes, I've been trying to get Gonz, especially over the past couple of years, to get out of California.
Yeah, I know. And
and you and I, we've talked about this quite a bit, actually, like you just mentioned. I'm always trying to get you out of California. And a lot of people in the live chats have a lot of mean things to say about you being in California. It's like at least once a week, somebody is going off on the fact that you live in California. I mean, it's the internet. So, there's some people who are just sort of either trolling or, they're just the kind of person who doesn't fully know what's going on. And I guess I'll start this off by saying, Gonz, believe it or not, this may come as a surprise to some people out there in the world, but you are a real person who has real life concerns and family and history and roots and things like that in California. So it's, of course, you don't need to get too personal about things if you don't want, but why don't you leave communist California, Gonzo? Besides the fact that it would take away a lot of the fun of the show, knowing that you're suffering under Governor Newsom.
Yeah,
because that is delightful.
Yeah, I mean, I can't deny the Newsom science.
It's Newsom science, baby.
How can you gotta believe science? That's
I forgot we still have jingles while doing this.
we do have a jingle board that is.
We'll need to throw in jingles just to keep things exciting. All right, so why don't you lay it down? Canonically answer this question.
Okay.
Why are you still living in communist California?
Okay. First off, like you said, I am a human being, which means I have family, friends, and so I'm born and raised in California, in Southern California, and
against your will,
against my will. That was not my choice. I was born in the city of Diamond Bar, and I believe my parents chose that city because the word diamond was in it, because they like wealthy things. They have this attraction to really. I say that because
it makes total sense to me. You don't need to explain it to me.
I don't know if you understand Asian culture, Basil, but there's a difference from American culture.
Yeah.
And my parents are from Japan. They came here in the 70s, so they're immigrants. Yeah. And I was born and raised here. And they live here, and they're getting older. I don't want to just leave them in the dust. But also my sister lives here in California. My wife's parents just moved back to California, which is I don't know why they did that. Actually, I do know why.
Presumably because you had a child.
Yeah, they moved back to be closer to us, and we were like, well, I mean, it's a tough situation, because if we move out, and let's say we moved closer to where they were out of state, close state, but not in California, then we're kind of leaving my parents and my side of the family behind. So there's a balancing act here. And listen, I've traveled a lot. I happen to be very fortunate to be kind of a stud swimmer when I was young. And it meant between the ages of 10 and 18, 19 years old, when I got to college, I got to travel all around the country for swim meets. And not that I get to see everything. I remember going to New York, and which is not the greatest example, I guess, but went to New York, and we got to see a little bit of the city, but the driver, the coach, had no idea what was going on. So you're like, oh, let's go see, Town Square, New York, Manhattan. And we ended up in New Jersey. And we took some tunnel, and people living there probably know what I'm talking about. There's one tunnel. Once you get in it, it's it takes you to the destination. You want to get out on the other side of the tunnel, you're in New Jersey. So did that and found ourselves at this cafe with it was so interesting for me as a California kid watching all the movies and stuff growing up. I'm like, oh wow, there really are little food places where the cook has got a cigarette in his mouth. Yeah. And they got I don't know. It was just very culturally very cool.
So it's not like you've never left California.
I've left California many times. Yeah. I've been to Japan. I've been to, different states. And I would have liked to travel more. I think you're a better traveled man than I am. And I plan to do that, Lord willing, in life at some point. Mm-hmm. But in terms of living, it's hard to, first off, to be quite honest, I don't know that I can fully afford a get up and move the entire family in terms of financially.
It is expensive. Yeah.
Just because, especially in California, I don't know if you've seen the U-Haul prices of U-Hauling out of California versus U-Hauling in. It's a 10x difference. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's 10 times more expensive to rent a U-Haul in California to go to a different state.
Yeah, especially if you're going out of state. They're like, oh, okay, here's an extra $2,000 per 100 miles or something. It's just ridiculous.
Right.
And, that's not, I mean, those are barriers that could be overcome, but it is a barrier, a headache for sure. And secondly, with my situation currently, the wife has a full-time job and, she has a good amount of contribution in terms of our family. Mm-hmm. And so
your support network is all gathered around you.
Yes.
I mean, that's one of the things that's difficult. I mean, a lot of people are making a lot of moves recently.
Of course.
And the one thing that makes it difficult is your support network. You go to somewhere else, especially when you got 2 kids, mm-hmm. you need grandparents to babysit and do stuff like this, or else you're paying thousands of dollars a month to have some stranger take care of your kids.
Yeah.
That's a big obstacle.
Yeah. And there were times when we almost did move out. When Tom Horn offered a job at Skywatch TV a few years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was a really close moment where it was like, okay, is God calling us to move to the Ozarks?
Yeah.
And it just didn't, stuff didn't line up, but we were pretty close. We were talking about it and we were taking it seriously. So it's not like we haven't thought about it seriously before.
And I've gotten pretty close to getting you guys to seriously consider moving out to where I am as well.
Yeah.
Hasn't worked, but I've made some pretty compelling arguments.
Yeah.
But so far, I understand, once you have I think the family thing sounds like the hardest.
It is. It's tough
for me.
Well, because I don't have any other family. Like the rest of my family, like grandparents, cousins, and stuff, they're all in Japan. Right. So it's not like I get to see them. I don't really get to communicate with them.
Was it on the show that I went through the real estate listings in Japan, or was this something?
I don't remember. It does ring a bell
on my own time.
No, it rings a bell, but I don't know that you did it on air per se.
Yeah, well, so Japan, they were, especially during the pandemic, they were trying to get people to move out of the cities and into the countryside. Mm-hmm. And so I think it was a mixture between some government supplements, financial supplements and stuff like that. They were making it super easy to move out into the countryside of Japan.
Wow.
And you could get acreage. I don't remember exactly what it is, but you could get acreage and a pretty decent sized house, 2,000 square feet for $200,000.
Oh, there's stuff that's cheaper than that. I mean, that's a pretty decent sized plot, but yeah, there's a lot of housing right now in Japan. And that's another thing I am curious about, and I don't have the money to do this, but it would be interesting to be able to just buy property and then
just to have it.
Yeah. And then plan,
maybe rent it or something.
Yeah. Plan later in life to really kind of live more of the off-grid life and all that. I mean, right now, I think raising the kids is sort of the priority here. So until they turn 18, 19, 20. And even then it depends on what they're doing kind of. They're like, oh, we hate America. We hate California. We hate America. We're leaving. We're going to, I don't know, Spain.
I do want to give a shout out to @OThatJohnJohn. That's John.
Yeah, I was going to mention that.
Twitter also asked a similar question.
Yes.
Says, what is keeping you guys from moving to the heartland specifically? Maybe even to around the Ozarks with Derek Gilbert and friends. Yep. Also, we'll get to see you guys for our state meetups, maybe in-state meetups, he meant. Yeah. Well, the Ozarks are especially interesting. I've resisted talking about this on the show for so long, but I've been watching Ozark on Netflix.
Yes, I know.
The show. Yeah. Have you seen it?
I've seen the whole thing.
Which is, it was a great show, actually. It's kind of like a newer, updated version of Breaking Bad with Jason Bateman. Good show. Check it out. But I was looking, I'm like, wow, the Ozark Lake or whatever, Lake of the Ozarks is beautiful. So many trees. I can drive a boat to work. This sounds awesome.
You could also launder money.
I could also launder money.
Keep a huge stash in the gravestones there.
I like the idea of having $52 million in cash hidden in various places around the lake. So, anywho, I actually did look at real estate out in the Ozarks, and it's not that cheap, actually. I think maybe the show put a premium on real estate out there.
Derek Gilbert has talked to me about how when he and Sharon purchased a home out there and the price that they dropped, and it was like, wow, that's very impressive. They've blessed the Gilberts over there. So, that's just the whole country right now. But also got to remember that some of that is kind of the magic trick of the US dollar in play too. I will say also that the part of the interesting story about me not going to the Ozarks and taking that Skywatch job, the reason why Josh Peck got hired, partly, this isn't all, but part of the story is that...
besides he's very talented
he's
researcher,
he's deserved it more. Yeah, he's definitely deserving.
Notorious funny man.
Yes. Yeah. He was basically... hired, I don't know if it was in place, but kind of the next guy to target for Skywatch TV after I declined to move out there and take the job. So the joke is always, between me and Josh has always been like, yeah, you only have all this career of yours because I said no. I created room for you. See, I was looking out for you, Josh Peck. So anyway, things work out for a reason is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. And there's a greater agenda. And, part of, you call it commie California, sure, but that just means there's a lot of people that can hear the gospel here. There's a lot of, but also I think people underestimate the amount of people, especially now, that are kind of waking up to stuff going on, and even at the kind of. Well,
it goes back to what I've sort of talked about in my travels and just sort of experiencing the world during pandemic time. Is there's a big difference between politics, policy, and news reporting about a place versus boots on the ground.
Boots on the ground, yep.
And the boots on the ground in California is certainly not as bad as it's not great.
Well,
but
there
it's
are
not
parts.
As bad.
Yeah, there are definitely parts of Los Angeles, San Francisco, the major centers that are like, oh my gosh, what happened? Especially LA right now. There's footage coming out of there, the homeless camps, blocks and blocks and blocks. I mean, those are places that I've gone to and walked the streets, and it's like, oh yeah, it used to be pretty nice, but now it's just all homeless encampment. What happened? And yes, so those things are happening in some of those centers, but also California is a big state. A lot of land in California. There's a lot of desert. There's like a lot of places where nothing's going on, So
a lot of desert, a lot of farm, a lot of rural living, a lot of Trump supporters.
So it's not. The power centers are the Los Angeleses and the San Franciscos, and that's where a lot of the news comes from. New York Times, like these big centers, but that's not the world. That's a portion of, that's a fragment of the world. And so, don't let the the news and how things are reported shape your actual view of a location.
Well, just keep in mind that being boots on the ground, the experience of individuals there is much different than what the mainstream or even independent media is telling you,
Yeah.
Because mostly they don't talk about the boots on the ground experience. They'll talk about politics. They'll talk about policies and trends and emergencies and all the worst things that grab headlines and have, I'm not even saying it's fake, just like has analysis going into it. But living your life day to day, boots on the ground, especially if you're not in the center of LA or San Francisco, is totally acceptable.
Yeah. And it seems like the pattern, at least where I'm at, and this is a kind of a boots on the ground report, is that there isn't the same kind of fervor to accept the government lockdown mandates, all that kind of stuff outside of like LA County, San Francisco County. Like I'm in Orange County and there are definitely spots that are kind of, more uptight about that stuff. But there's a whole lot of people that are like, yeah, we're so over it. Like nobody cares.
And Orange County is the reddest part of California. It's changed a little bit recently, but it is still the most. Yeah, it's still the most conservative area.
Yeah,
all right, I think we should move on.
Okay, next question.
I think we got you. Do you have one you want to do, or should I pick one here?
I think the first one on the list here.
Really?
You really don't want to do that one. Okay, that's fine.
No. I do want to do it. Okay, let's do it.
Okay.
The one from Hinterlands?
Yes.
Okay. This question comes from Hinterlands Podcast at Hinterlands Feed. And the question is, why so much trust always placed on the word of your microbiologist producer? Have you seen his credentials? It's a little concerning, the weight placed on this person's opinion. Again, I find this question pretty funny, but why don't you start us off?
Okay.
So he's referring to N. Numati, who pops in for every chat, has been in the ecosphere of the show for a long time, and is and has been a producer of the show, has been and is a microbiologist of 25 plus years. And, I like to say keeps us honest on a lot of the stuff relating to his field, especially when we try to actually analyze a lot of the claims, both from the mainstream and from the alternative media about the vaccine. And it's he's a very sort of steady hand when it comes to answering our questions about this, giving us info, bringing our attention to certain things that are not being covered or are not being adequately discussed in the media. Again, either mainstream or alternative. And yes, so there you go. That's who he's talking about.
Right. Okay. So he's you call him our in-house microbiologist. So
yes, our resident microbiologist.
Yeah. And we're having fun with that. And actually, in the last episode where we did reference some of his analysis of that Dr. Carey footage that a lot of people are very passionate about, we did have a moment of, we trust you, buddy, but also there's a part of us that's like, who is this guy? Well, that being said, I'll start out by saying we don't always trust ultimate or place ultimate trust in N. Numati. Yeah, I don't think we ever have. We've agreed with some of his takes or just his opinions on things, or at least the propositions.
We use it within our own analysis.
Right,
we never just parrot. We don't just parrot what N. Numati is saying, whatever he feeds us, but he is a useful data point in further analysis of what we're saying that includes many other data points.
Yeah. And he started off as just a producer doing just kind of, jingles and art and stuff like that. It wasn't until later that he told us he's a microbiologist. He did list his credentials. So it's, and I don't know that we've seen his certificate officially or something like that, but
right.
There's a level of anonymity, of course, between the two of us, but based on some of the analysis that he has done on certain things, I trust that he is a microbiologist. Like, he knows what he's talking about. Based on some emails, some very detailed emails, stuff that we don't even read on air. We're not reading everything he sends us on air.
Yeah, we've had conversations. Right, we have had lots of conversations with him. He's listed his credentials. We have not called his company to verify. We have not called his school and checked his school records.
Yeah,
if that's the sort of thing. But I feel like the spirit of this question, given current events, comes from the fact that he had some very useful pieces of information in analyzing the Dr. Carey, whoever. What was that woman's name?
Medej.
Yes. Because that really sparked people off.
Oh, it did, yeah. It took. Yeah.
And the big thing is, even without Ennumati, we are so skeptical of this woman. And, if the question is why so much trust in Ennumati, someone who personally has been involved with our show for a while now, why so much trust in Dr. Carey Madesh, which is just a woman who I've never seen her credentials. I've never seen her. I've never called her school. I've never called her job. She throws up so many red flags even without having to check that. And I'm not even questioning her credentials. I'm sure her credentials are
I think she's
fine.
A physician too, though. Like that, you got to keep that in mind
she's
too.
She's not a clinical researcher. She's not a research scientist. Ennumati is a scientist, not a
just a physician or a
clinician, physician, right? Not a family doctor or anything like that. He works in the research field. But again, going back to the Dr. Carey thing, she throws up so many red flags that honestly, Ennumati did not sway our opinion about Dr. Carey in the first place.
Yeah.
But he had some interesting data points that we followed up with and looked into, and he happened to be completely right about. So let me go back to the question, make sure we're answering things. Why so much trust always placed? Okay, I will say it's not always placed on the word. And it's not just about his word. We look into what he shares with us. Of your microbiologist producer, have you seen credentials? No, but I haven't seen any credentials for a lot of online people. It's a little concerning, the weight placed on this person's opinion. And I would finish out with this being, look, he totally could be a CIA shill who's coming in to
discredit
the
living organism.
We don't get that vibe. We don't get that. I don't think I've ever gotten a serious red flag about Ennumati in any sense. But the point is, you don't need to take him at his word either. And you shouldn't be taking us at our word.
And here's the thing. Why so much weight placed on Dr. Carey's opinion?
Right.
I mean,
because she was on a big podcast.
Just as concerning?
She said all the most concerning things that line up with the most alarmist view of a lot of things.
This isn't,
and it feels good to agree with her.
I know some people feel like stuff like this is sowing division and, we're dividing and, all this kind of stuff. But that's all in the interpretation of each individual. I think a large majority of people don't think that we're like saying Dr. Carey is some evil person or, trying to misdirect. We don't know. Yeah. I have no idea. Maybe she's the CIA show. Like, who knows,
Right.
But the point is that if we're going to stick to staying sober-minded, staying vigilant about this stuff, it's important to not sensationalize. And I think here's a point that I've made on Twitter and stuff, and I'll say it out loud, is that, I think the general concerns that people express as using Dr. Carey as the main data point, like, look at what she's saying, this is all concerning. The general direction of the concern of CRISPR, of, bioethics, of bioengineering, all that stuff, nanotech, we're kind of in the same boat. Like, we're going in the same direction.
We've spent our whole careers looking at those things. So for people to think that we don't believe in nanotechnology because we don't believe Dr. Carey, that's some like mind control reaction formation going on there.
Right.
You know, there's people like, I don't know, there's some really aggressive people just like he's personally emailing us separately being like, I'm going to teach you a thing or two. And I'm like, yo, all of you people, have you been listening for the past 10 years? We've had nano scientists on the show to discuss nanotechnology, and all we talk about are nanobots and things like this. Like, I'm not saying like we're the smartest, most educated people on the subject, but our entire careers are based on looking at this stuff. And just because we disagree that, not even disagree, there's nothing to disagree with. Because we are skeptical of taking Dr. Carey at her word.
Yeah, the claims she made, like just because we don't believe her claims specifically about what's in the vaccines.
And it's not even about her claims. Like she said herself a lot of things that are easily explained by someone who is a researcher, such as the like nano crystals forming on the edges of the glass, which is like, yes, that happens with all saline solution.
Everything. Yeah.
That's not a bizarre thing to do. Her little nanobots, octopus things, waking up and looking at her and calling her mommy or whatever. Okay. Don't get mad, folks.
See, this is why you get in trouble. This is why people get so mad. They're like, how dare you throw a strong, bold woman under the bus, you horrible person.
Humor for a podcast. Settle down. But those little octopi things she saw are just so easily explained by amoebas landing on the sample in the air, and it happens all the time with looking at samples underneath microscopes. And so, anywho, it's not that we're claiming that Dr. Carey is a shill or something. It's just a lot of her red flags mixed with a lot of easily explained parts of her story that don't need to lead to nanobots and are, someone who, and she admittedly doesn't look under microscopes a lot. And so we have someone who's a producer of the show who looks under microscopes a lot for 25 plus years. So we're going to take that as a data point. And you know what? We have producers in all sorts of professions. We have lawyers and doctors and truck drivers and this and that all over the world. Different people in different professions produce the show. And do we ask them to send us their college diplomas and pay stubs to prove that they work at the company they claim? No. But are we saying that you should take anything for granted as absolute truth on the show, whether it's said by us or a producer of the show or whatever? Absolutely not. So the question, I believe, reveals a core misconception about how to watch the show and how to take the information in that we present.
Right. Okay. I think we covered that.
Thank you for the question.
No, it's a good question because it's
and I'm sure lots of other people. Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you very much. Hinterlands podcast.
Yep. All right. I want to do just a fun one here.
Okay.
And I know you wanted a sequential thing, but I think we'll bounce back around here. This is from Adam42.
Okay.
And the question is, a long time ago, y'all said you thought the Earth as a bubble floating in the ocean. Expand on that.
I don't remember saying this. Who said this?
I think
you said it or I said it?
I think I said it. I do remember saying something like that.
Okay.
This is kind of like a flat Earth adjacent, right?
Okay.
I think it's just better for us to think about the physical world as a realm, and the shape of the realm is less important than like what's happening in the realm and what's happening in the unseen realm. That being said, I've spent a lot of time in the water and, in a pool. And there's something about being underwater that is strangely familiar. And maybe it's because you start in the womb or something like that. I've heard people talk about that. When Bezos was up, he did that space flight thing a few weeks ago, and he was like, "Oh, it feels like we're supposed to evolve into space." My thought was, it's probably because it feels like you're in water up there,
like floating
in water. Yeah. I think that's why it feels familiar. And
I think it's like a womb type
feeling, the weightlessness, and also when people have long said in the conspiracy world, especially, they're just underwater when they do all the footage of people doing the spacewalk and everything else, because they train underwater. You've seen the big rigs that go underwater and they train. So there's something to that, and whether it be kind of a spiritual thing or a realm thing. I've always thought that, like, looking at a bubble in the water and how it fluctuates, it moves. It's a purely 360 degree in all directions contained, sealed ball in the water, And I always thought, like, I wonder if that is the type of thing that the Earth is, and that can mean round Earth, that can mean flat Earth, because it could be like a little, snow globe where there's dirt on the bottom, who knows? Yeah. But I'm saying, like, there's a self-containment of our realm, and bubbles made me consider that. Maybe I stared at bubbles too much and I'm insane.
I mean, there is an interesting through line between your bubble metaphor and the flat Earth dome, but also the globe model.
Firmament.
With the firmament, but also with the sort of traditional globe model with the sort of bubble of atmosphere around us. And you could even extend the limits of the bubble to things like the not the Van Allen belt. What is it?
It is the Van Allen belt. I think you are talking about
the asteroid belt.
I thought the asteroid was the. Hold on, now I got to look it up.
Oh gosh, okay, fact check. Yeah, the radiation belt is what I'm trying to do. Trying to reference here that supposedly keeps us from going to the moon again.
Yeah, that's the Van Allen belt.
We did it in the 60s, but we can't get through it again.
The weirdest thing ever.
So, like, maybe that could be considered like the edges of the bubble or even the firmament. And, we get a lot of, it's kind of a fun little tongue-in-cheek thing between the globers and the globe heads and the flat earthers, both poking fun at, well, me specifically, but I'm sure you're included in that, which is, we were one of the first podcasts to, I'm not saying we were the first or we created it or anything, but 2015, we had Flat Earth.
It was March or April 2015.
Yeah.
We started hearing a little bit about it in 2014, a little bit, but it wasn't really a thing. We had our interview before it blew up, basically.
Yeah, right. This was a weird thing back when we started talking about it. And honestly, I totally understand the argument that, like, it affects everything, because the question is, like, well, who cares what shape the Earth is? Well, if it is flat, and we are being lied to, and it does affect cosmology away from a biblical worldview and stuff like that, I totally understand. But me personally, as far as getting dogmatic about the nature of the Earth as a realm, depending what shape it is as an object, I think you're right. The realm thing is the most important. What is going on in it? Perhaps what is going on outside of it is very interesting. But I find that the actual physical nature of it to be not unimportant.
Yeah, it's still important.
I'm not saying it's unimportant, but it's the least compelling aspect of it to me personally. And, when you get deep into, like, what is perception and what does shape even matter? Technically, depending on perspective, it could be any shape. It could be
it's flat when we're on the ground, and it looks more like a
be a
ball
circle.
When you're really far away
Perhaps when people are in space, just the curvature of their eyeball makes it look, whatever. But I'm much more concerned with what's happening here than the actual physical object itself. Plus, we all know Hollow Earth theory is the legit one, and
it's been your joke that you're serious about for a while now.
The Earth is hollow, and there's a sun inside of the Earth, and that's where King Kong and the rest of the dinosaurs live, and the Nazis, and the aliens, and perhaps the devil, but we don't know.
The space is not out there; it's inside. And I think people get mad.
Man,
people get mad about the topic because they are, a lot of people are very passionate about their Bible, and they take certain passages.
As are we.
Yeah, so are we. I'm not saying we're not. I'm saying that they are certain interpretations, I should say. They're very passionate about certain interpretations of parts of Scripture, and so they will point to that and say, "Well, you're denying the Bible. You're denying."
Right.
And it's like, no, we're not denying the Bible, but there are other ways you can understand that passage. And again, I think the realm is a better way to explain all of it than God was giving you physical dimensions of how this thing looks.
Yeah. And I think one of the big things that we try to at least model on the show is like, hey, don't let this be the thing that like separates you from other children of God. Like, it's okay for us to disagree about the shape of the earth. At least in my opinion, in a lot of people's opinion, it's not okay. But in my opinion, it's okay. I'm not trying to call anybody crazy or wrong or anything. It honestly has no bearing on me whatsoever what shape you think the earth is in. And I would just recommend people, you don't have to lie and say somebody else is right or wrong, but we can all get along because there's much more important things to worry about that are affecting people's daily lives and the direction the world is going in, and the caused division. That sort of comes up as just sort of unhelpful in most cases.
It is kind of interesting when you think about the timing of everything, how we went from, because Flat Earth completely took over the truth community. Like I had never seen anything like that before. I guess we weren't in it for that long. It was like 4 or 5 years, but it was very bizarre to see a topic hit on all the trigger points, all the suspicions, NASA, everything.
Yeah.
And completely get everybody to focus on the shape of the earth, which.
Yeah. And not pay attention to other things.
Think about in hindsight, the timing of it, 2015, that's the same year that the Pope came to the US, announced the UN 2030 agenda. People kind of stopped talking about the New World Order at that point. They're all talking about flat Earth. So sociologically, at least here in America, or at least on the internet, I should say, not even America, the internet, what I saw was very fascinating in terms of the timing of it, the amount of attention that was drawn away from.
And it was sort of during Pizzagate stuff.
It was right before. I guess it was all throughout that stuff. But it was. Yeah. It kind of did allow a culling of the crazy people believe in flat Earth and Pizzagate and then they're all Trump supporters and now they believe Q and they're all white nationalists. It all kind of.
There's an easy label to discredit anything truthery by saying, "Oh, you're a flat earther." I mean, even today we have people. Rand Paul.
Using the flat
just
Earth.
Blasted. Yeah. Well, he blasted that guy who's going. I forget who he is. He's just a communicator going around the country, trying to convince people to get the vaccine. And who's not a doctor, who doesn't have any medical training and anything. And the very words he's saying is, these flat earthers don't want their vaccine. And it's just interesting because it's like, first of all, what does that have to do with anything with the vaccine? But it's just sort of like this dog whistle that you can throw in to call somebody crazy. And it feels sort of like a purposeful sort of psyop to have been able to bring back that label to automatically categorize people.
Yeah.
But, who knows? I don't know what shape the earth is.
The topic itself is hollow. Yeah, it's fascinating. I loved all the people that put together all the different studies and everything else. And I guess if you really want to get into that stuff, I'm not stopping anybody from doing the research, but.
And I did some of the experiments myself.
Yeah,
I did the moonlight.
Moonshine. You did the moonshine?
I did the moonshine test, buddy. And let me tell you, the earth is flat. I did the moon.
I laid right on it.
I laid there all night. I did the moonlight experiment, where moonlight is colder than moon shadow. Mm-hmm. And that freaked me out. I did it 3 different times on 3 different nights, and I still am shook by doing that experiment.
There's something going on with the moon for sure.
Something's going on, but that's a different topic.
Sure. Yeah.
I have do you have another question?
No, go for it. You want to go ahead and
what's our time? How are we looking time-wise?
Looks like the live, we're about 50 minutes.
50 minutes. Okay, we got some time.
Yeah, we're good for a bit. Yeah.
So this person asked a couple of questions, but I kind of want to just grab one of these questions. Well, maybe let's do I kind of want to we'll just do this quick little fun one. Just to give us a break. This came from Matthew at Matt de la Madrid. It says, what's some good Christian music you two listen to? I know Gonz is a rock fan and Basil likes the ska. Any suggestions? I haven't listened to a lot of music in general. Ska, I was big into years ago. Still really enjoy it nostalgically. But John again replied, for ska, you should check out 5 Iron Frenzy. I was the biggest 5 Iron Frenzy fan that ever lived when I was younger. And so, yes, everybody should go check out 5 Iron Frenzy. It's a ska band. If you want to sort of understand the formative musical years of your best buddy, check out a band called 5 Iron Frenzy. There's ska, which you got to kind of get used to. But you got to check it out. It'll explain everything.
Did you ever listen to the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones or anything like that?
I did a little bit, but honestly, it was all about 5 Iron Frenzy. When you're a teenager and like you're kind of just getting into music and you find it's kind of like I found 5 Iron Frenzy. It was the band, and I became a ska fan because of 5 Iron Frenzy, but I really didn't even listen to that much other ska because it was just all about 5 Iron Frenzy.
That makes sense. Yeah, I never really got into ska that much, especially because it was kind of boring on guitar. It was guitar was a rhythm instrument. I'm like,
not a very
I need some tapping and some sweeping. I was the closest. I don't know if it's even closest. The band that I guess it was just in that era. There's a band called RX Bandits. Have you ever heard of them?
No.
They're very good, and they have ska elements. They're not exactly ska, but they have some ska elements in their music, and they're very, very good. Yeah. I don't think they're a Christian band or anything, but.
Well, Gonz, that's not the question. The question is Christian music. And yes, 5 Iron Frenzy is Christian, for those wondering.
Oh, there you go.
But so we're here to make suggestions. And this has come up in the past on a TJT episode that Jen interviewed me for an episode and asked me about music. And the honest truth is, and this offends a lot of people, I just don't listen to a lot of music. I just don't do it. I mostly, almost exclusively listen to podcasts. I almost never listen to music unless it's like in the gym and I'm trying to get like super pumped up and the pre-workout is coursing through my veins and I'm, just picturing myself as a gorilla getting struck by lightning, lifting heavy things, I'll put on some just whatever random gym workout Spotify playlist. But I just really don't listen to music. And that's very concerning to people. Whenever I say that, people are like, oh, that's so sad. I'm like, wow. And I've always had a little bit of a problem. Now I'm going off the rails from the question. I've always had a little bit of a problem with the concept of like, music is magical, man. Music is what the soul needs. Music is what music is love. Music is what it's all about. And we're just like, I could go with or without it. Give me a nice 3-hour podcast and I'll be fine.
That's really interesting. I had a lot more of an emotional attachment to music growing up. But,
yeah, I mean, I did too. I don't know what it is. I just sort of got over it.
Well, yeah, it's interesting because a lot of my love for music was an escape. It was an escape hatch for a lot of anger issues and personal issues. And, my way of expressing some of that was with music. But I remember being saved, getting baptized and all that. And I've said this before, but it was like, oh man, I don't have the same kind of emotional attachment to the music that I used to love to take out my aggressions. But then there were like some Christian groups that came out, like Under Oath was a big kind of Christian.
I was going to bring up Under Oath.
Yeah. And they were good. I liked their music, but it never really did it for me. And there's a band called Emery. That's kind of more of that heavy style. And they're good. Emery too. They're good, but it, I don't know. Like it just doesn't like, I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm
Christian wise. And these are hardcore,
yes,
these are hardcore
Christian
bands you're mentioning.
Yes.
Not like worship music.
No, not exactly worship music, but yeah. And I supported a lot of Christian bands buying their albums and things like that. Cutlass is another one that's pretty popular. So I have listened to a lot of like Christian rock and there's different kinds of, I even listened to like a Christian, there's a EDM guy that was decent. Some hip hop guys and, excuse me. Yes, child. Sorry, we can interrupt it.
The child has appeared even on a special episode.
Okay. I'll be down in a few minutes. Okay. Can you go down and wait? Cause we're doing a show. No. Okay.
No, I will wait here.
Okay. You can wait here. It's fine. In recent years though, some people just in our Truth or kind of community started making music. Destiny Lab has been around for a while doing the hip hop music. I feel bad. I'm going to leave people out, but there's you
mean on accident?
Yeah. No, I'm not going to do it purposely. There's a CD that's stuck in my car because my stereo's broken of Dissident Prophet. Cool. They're definitely, truth or woke. And I love their songs, by the way. They're kind of more of a laid back, more of a rock and roll. Yes. Why do I have a head like that? Oh, it's because I'm wearing a beanie. That's my vacation beanie, by the way, for those watching. I'm
Take it off.
Okay. Thank you. Yes. No, I'm not going to take it off right now. I'm going to finish this, okay? And then I'll come down.
You need to get that baby a kitten.
There's a cat downstairs. Oh, go find what's the cat's name? I forget the cat's name.
Cat?
Yeah, what's the cat's name? Our cat. The cat here. BB, go find BB. Because you got to find her. Because we need to find the cat. Oh, it is Y phase right now. Yes, she is in Y phase.
Y phase.
We just need to find a fuzzy cat.
We need it. we need it, baby.
We need to do it.
We need to find the fuzzy cat.
Okay. So anyway, the music thing. There's a group called the Modern Post, who is it was actually just a project done by Dustin Kendrew, who was the lead singer and guitarist of Thrice. And the Modern Post, some of my more agreeably likable worship music. It's some of the best recordings of worship music that I've enjoyed over the years. So check out the Modern Post if you haven't. It got pretty popular.
I would also like to make the statement
that
I've been in bands my whole life, been in worship bands, done the thing, played music, gone through different phases of it. But yeah, just currently I'm not a huge music person. I was going to give a shout out to OBL, which is a musical group.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Who supported the show.
Yeah. They had some good music. They
have a song Science of Compliance, I think was the one that we played a piece of on the show, or at least checked out. So OBL, I forget what it means. What does OBL mean?
I forget too. And recently somebody sent us
One Big Love.
One Big Love.
So they do like it's kind of like Christian truther hip hop type stuff.
Yeah. It was good stuff.
That.
And we've had recently a slew of producers that sent in like really cool stuff. Good guitar. Learbag.
Honestly,
3000
the music, the music we play on the show, especially after the show. Learbag stuff, Marty B stuff, all sorts of great producers. That's like the music I listen to the most.
Yeah, I think we're just creating our own musical culture here.
Yeah,
and that'll be the way to go.
All right. So, anything else to say about the music?
I think that's it.
Now you have baby bugging you. Should we take a couple more questions?
Yeah,
one
do
more
one
question.
Or two more. Yeah, one or two more.
Okay. This one I thought was interesting. Not that we're going to come to a definitive answer on it, but this came from Cameron Davis. At Cameron Davis SC.
Yes.
I think made a couple of little posts. One of them was we agree on eschatology as premillennials and pre-wrath. However, what do you see as the biggest reasons you do not accept preterism?
Yes.
So yeah, that's an interesting, again, way to put the question. Accept preterism. I'm not sure what accept preterism is. I understand the theology of preterism. I understand not the cosmology, but the eschatology of preterism. And I think that there is some pretty compelling aspects of preterism.
Yeah.
But it's
don't touch that part. Sorry,
but also there are parts of preterism that don't necessarily fulfill the supernatural aspects of the book of Revelation.
It's not even just supernatural. I think, I've talked about this before, and
maybe
I keep
a quick
bringing
explanation for preterism for people.
Yes. So the general definition of preterism, if I am not mistaken, is that all the prophecies in the Bible were fulfilled in 70 AD at the destruction of the Jewish temple.
All the book of Revelation, the prophecy of the Revelation was fulfilled in 70 AD.
Right. And it is a very scholarly view, because it kind of gives John, the revelator, 20 some odd years to write Revelation, because they'll say, Revelation was written in the 90s in the first century, and 70 AD was 20 years before. So he's referring back to the destruction of Jerusalem. So Kaya, stop, baby. You don't take pictures with that. That is a video camera. Yeah, it's a video camera. So, okay, go do video. You can film stuff over here. No, don't film me. I'm already on camera. Go over here. Okay, sorry about that. This is exciting radio.
Yeah.
So, what was I saying? Preterism. Yeah.
You're talking about gifts John 20
years after the fact, and he's referencing back and writing in code because he doesn't want to get killed, even though he's already imprisoned.
Yeah.
But there's a few things that stuck out. Now, first off, there are definitely some stuff you can connect to with preterism in terms of some of its claims. And it's like, 70 AD definitely was a type of apocalypse. There's
the destruction of the temple.
The destruction of the temple. And, you can say that Jesus was talking about that event.
It was basically the apocalypse of the Jewish community in Israel at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So yes, there is definitely a prophetic piece to it. Now, in my studies, I've looked at a lot of Old Testament prophecies, And if it's true, and I don't know that preterists say that there's a partial preterism as well that kind of stems off of preterism.
I was going to say, I think that's actually important. There's partial preterism and there's full preterism.
Right.
Partial preterism recognizes the parts of the prophecies that did seem to have come true in 70 AD, and yet leaves room for like a future event, the future supernatural returning of Jesus Christ. And there's different kinds of partial preterists too, because there are some people who take some of the developments in the Roman Catholic Church as fulfilling some of the prophecies later on. And so, there's been some trolly people on my Twitter feed where they're partial preterists, but they're also like super anti-futurists because they latch onto one of the narratives about Rome and how one of the guys, I think his name was Sanchez, came up with futurism to deny the fact that the Pope was the Antichrist, stuff like that. So there's a lot of different flavors, as with anything. But one of the things that I look at is the prophecies about the land of Israel. So the promised land. And there's a lot of Old Testament prophecies about, hey, there's going to be the land that is promised to you. And once you receive it, take away your sins. There's a lot of very eschatological passages about the land. Mm-hmm. And throughout the history of ancient Israel and even modern Israel, the reformation of the nation state, the land itself is not covering the promised land, Right. And there are, I had some of this pulled up earlier, but there are passages about when that happens, there's no more war. The whole plowshare passages. Oh, there's just not going to be any more war. No nation will rise against nation any longer, kind of thing. And it's like, well, then it's not now because, it's not the 1947 thing because look how much hostility there is in the Middle East. But getting back to preterism, there's just a lot of things that have not occurred even in the Old Testament as far as the fulfillment of prophecies. And you mentioned the supernatural stuff. And you look at like a rapture and stuff
rapture, like that. You can even look at the spreading of the gospel. They have their interpretations of that.
Reaching all four corners of the earth. Because they'll say, oh, they're talking about Rome. Rome was the world. And it was like, well, yeah, but okay. Then you have to interpret the scriptures in a certain way to not mean what it said in a way, or at least try to just say that it, that this one translation of it, because it was used a certain way in other parts of the Bible, is the only way you can translate it. And so I think, and if we get a little bit more talking about the spiritual or supernatural side of things, it is my opinion that with prophecies, it's almost, and I brought the word up last episode, or I don't know, maybe different episode when people are hearing this, but the word motif, the word archetype, you mentioned the quote about how history doesn't repeat, it rhymes. Yeah.
And I think a lot of moments in history are motifs of prophecies that are to be fulfilled. And I think the scriptures made it that way. Like, 70 AD, there was stuff that happened that's like, it's written in the prophecies. But also there's this future time, because if the word truly is supernatural, then it kind of covers everything, and it's going to be something that people can hold on to. The people that know what's going on can look at the word and say, this is that, happening right now. But then also later on, because then what kind of hope would you have? What kind of hope would someone who is a full preterist, like, let's say, because even right now, like, you have to deny that, like, the mark of the beast or the vaccine is the mark of the beast.
Right.
If you're a preterist, you're going to deny it. But
or not even that. You have to deny that the mark of the beast is anything forthcoming.
Right. Anything forthcoming.
There you go. That the mark of the beast already
took place. Right.
Yeah.
But you can't deny the fact that if they're taking away your ability to bank and buy or sell without a green passport or whatever, then there are some shades of those prophecies there. So, yes.
Yeah. Well, okay. While you do that, I'll talk a little bit about it.
Hold on, I'll be back.
So the sort of nature of the question being, why don't we accept preterism? Or I'll just answer for myself, not Gonz. I think I'm not exactly sure. Why do I believe preterism is entirely true? Would be maybe a more precise way to say that. I accept preterism as a very interesting and well-studied scholarly idea. I think partial preterism, I don't really have any problem with partial preterism because it's still, like I said, there's parts of the revelation that we cannot attach to any sort of historical event, and having, being able to look for that in modern culture seems to be an effective way to spend time, in my opinion. But I feel like, preterism in general is sort of is the go-to for the non-supernatural worldview. But that being said, I do feel like there are some extra spicy responses to the idea of preterism that are not necessarily warranted. I think everybody should do a deep dive and look into preterism, if nothing else than just like reading through the Wikipedia, just to fully understand the argument of preterism. I don't think somebody being a preterist means they're not saved, or that they aren't concerned with the eternal consequences of things happening today versus 2,000 years ago. I feel like there's sort of a response to preterism that sort of can label somebody, right?
They all need to burn. They're all burning like hell.
An atheist or like a non-believer or just not biblically grounded. Preterism, there's been some very good quality scholars who are preterists, and it's just where they arrived in their studies. More than anything, I kind of want to let people know, like, it's okay to look into preterism.
Yeah,
and
no, you should. It's actually very interesting.
It's a very interesting thing.
Interesting stuff going on with
it. And you'll come in contact with very important and very legit scholarly piece and historical and theological pieces of information that maybe you haven't had before. So I highly recommend everybody do a study on preterism. And, I don't know if I'm not a preterist. There are some days where I consider partial preterism a logical stance. But again, I'm not necessarily basing my salvation or anybody else's salvation on preterism.
Yep. Yeah, there's I've looked at a lot of preterist studies, actually, just because, I was getting a lot of people wanting me to look at it. It is very fascinating. The historical narrative of what happened in that time is very interesting. But, it's one of those issues where a lot of people talk about Matthew 24, he's talking about 70 AD, the temple, everything else. And it's like, yes. And perhaps another time as well. Like,
right.
Why is it? Well, it's never like I don't think there necessarily has to be a 1-to-1 fulfillment. In terms of, I mean, obviously there is like an ultimate fulfillment, but I don't think it's our job to know what that is. As a watchman, we're sort of watching everything and we'll comment on, hey, this looks like that. This looks like this. But I think it's a disservice and ultimately it could be deceptive. And there's passages about like the prophecies that people told will be shamed because it won't come to pass and stuff like that in the Old Testament. Yeah. It's a disservice to say like, oh, we know that this is the fulfillment of this. And therefore, I understand it's kind of a method to preach, but also it's not I don't know. It's not necessary.
Preterism, full preterism is also theologically, like in a practical theology, full preterism is also really wrapped up in replacement theology. Yeah. Which is the Christian doctrine that
the church replaced Jews.
Christians replaced Jews in the Bible, which is sort of problematic for not even just in certain theological issues with that. aside from the fact that was sort of, that's mainly sort of like an evangelical American Protestant idea that is fairly recent, actually. It's kind of like a new theology. And I think a lot of people don't know that's historically an incredibly new theology. And that's almost this entirely new conversation, but that's conversation. That is one of the things with full preterism that a lot of people don't like, or maybe they do like. I mean, it's just like a really complicated part of it.
Yeah, well, as with any theology, it's all intertwined with different views. There's parts that agree here, parts that disagree here, and then at some point somebody calls it a doctrine, and then they have a list. It's just human nature to. Especially in this fallen state, especially as we see through a glass darkly, that we're gonna construct our own view of things, and some things make more sense than others. But the important thing is the important thing, which is the relationship with Christ. And I think that's key to remember. I actually think replacement theology is a misdirection because it
feels that way. It
confuses the conversation about who the church is and who the ethnic Jews are. And I don't think it does anyone good, but that's my opinion on stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's again very complicated.
People have accused me of being a replacement theologist, by the way, because of some of the ways I not even interpret, but like I've commented on certain things, especially like Romans and Romans 8 and stuff, and it talks about not all who are born Jews are Jews, and it's like all these passages that say that.
To some degree, replacement theology is sort of the standard in the American evangelical church, which is, and it speaks to, I think, the core of why replacement theology is so prevalent in America is that it speaks to this is what somebody would argue, is that it would speak to the relevance of the Bible to the modern Christian,
American Christian, specifically.
The American Christian, right, where. Hey, whatever God is saying to the Jews in their current moment is what he's saying to American Christians, because we are the new Israel.
Right.
And then there's and so it's a very useful, practical theology in Bible teaching. However, it doesn't quite stand up in a lot of instances. So anywho, there you go. Now we've gone off the rails. Okay, how you doing on time? Do we need to?
Other than being bothered by the child again, which I welcome.
Could happen. Yeah.
I mean, she's in here now. She's back. She's back. We can do one more maybe, and we can call it.
I'm kind of looking through the list. Was there one that you wanted to hit on? There's also new ones coming in as we speak, so I'll take a look at those.
Okay.
And see if there's any.
Let's see. I think we've kind of covered a lot of the Mark of the Beast topic.
Yeah,
talked about it quite a bit. Should we do the Bitcoin thing or no?
I don't know. We kind of talked about it before.
Yeah,
talking about the Bitcoin in any depth is a lot of people don't really like that very much. But
what's a new one that came in?
I was mistaken. I was looking at a different thing.
Oh.
There's something about the Apostle Paul. I don't know if you saw that one. I'm not really prepared to give a whole...
that's a whole can of worms.
We did a whole deep preterism thing. So.
I mean, it wasn't that... Yeah, I mean, for what we're doing right now, we're not referencing studies or, we're not doing a whole lot of scripture references right now. But yes, hello. What do you think about preterism?
What do you think about preterism, baby? Yeah,
it's just funny. Yeah, it's just silly.
It's funny. It's a funny thing. Here's a fun one.
Mm-hmm.
Have you two considered making it through an entire show without the uncomfortable squabbling?
Oh my gosh.
Love you guys. I won't even dox this person. I don't want people to be mean to them. But there was a response that actually this got a lot of responses.
Yeah, it was a whole thread. I think.
We've been basically best friends for 10 years, and we have occasional brotherly squabbles, and we're not a polished mainstream news show. That's not what the show is. We could script things out. We could act professional and we could, do that, but that's not what we are. That's not who the show is. And that would be a little inauthentic. And sometimes Gonz says some whack stuff on the show that needs to be straightened.
Me that says the whack stuff. Okay.
That needs to be straightened out in a public forum.
It's not like you haven't said anything crazy on the podcast or anything. Highly inappropriate things that...
It's true. Well, one thing, I will say this, maybe because we haven't actually talked about this, so maybe you'd find this interesting. In hindsight, after we have some sort of little squabble on the show, in hindsight, I often find that we get into the squabble because we're not talking about the same thing, or we're sort of talking past each other.
That's normally how things happen. That's normally a squabble. Like even on the internet, it's the same thing all the time. People talking past each other. It's a common thing that happens.
We'll get sort of frustrated with one another because we're both talking about two different things and we don't realize it in the moment. And so a lot of the squabbling is just like, what are you talking about? Anyways, it's just a breakdown of communication that sometimes happens. And that just happens when you put out 15 hours of content extemporaneously unscripted.
You've actually said that you're impressed that we haven't actually had more blunders of just saying just highly wrong,
live, the fact everything the fact
done.
that it's all live too and we can't take anything back. Let's see here. Okay, well, let's do a couple light ones, a couple little light ones.
Sure.
This is from WW Earp. And they say, I remember you said you were watching Succession. Yes. New season comes out 17th of October. Are there any other TV shows you or Gonz can recommend? What do you think of Westworld and Game of Thrones? Also, what's your favorite movie? So we'll do a light one here and then we can get into something else. Yes, Succession's good. Any other shows? Recommending shows is a little bit of a fragile thing for us to do because there's such a wide range of people who listen to the show. So that's why I always have to stipulate, like, there's adult themes, there's bad language. I'm not saying it's like everybody needs to watch it, but if you're tolerant to bad language and adult themes, this is a piece of art that exists that you might enjoy. I guess I mentioned Ozark earlier.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty violent, though.
It's like a Breaking Bad type of thing. You'll get some language, some adult themes. It's about a guy who's laundering money for a drug cartel, but a well put together television show as far as television shows go. Have you been watching Squid Games?
No, I've seen some screenshots. It looks definitely interesting.
It's all the rage right now.
Yeah.
Squid Games is a fine watch. It comes straight from South Korea. And so you gotta look past a lot of crazy is an insensitive way to put it, but
you racist, your true colors show.
Because the South Korean film industry is not as developed as the US film industry. Some of the acting is so over the top and wild. It is almost makes you almost have no reference point for it as someone used to sort of American acting and American film theory and stuff. But it's an entertaining show. You can either watch it with in Korean with the subtitles, or you can watch it with English dub. And the English dub, is so distracting. But I just did it because I don't want to read the whole time. But Squid Games is very interesting. Most of my television watching is to stay engaged and knowledgeable about, I'm not going to say I do it for the show, but it plays the role of staying engaged in culture and being able to spot trends, spot messaging, that kind of stuff. So that's my excuse, at least. And Squid Games is such a cultural phenomenon right now. And it's so interesting because the acting is not great. The English dubbing is not great. The writing is a little confusing. You can chalk up a lot of that to just the cultural differences between America and South Korea. But it's if you want to understand the memes on TikTok, you got to watch Squid Games.
The Asian takeover.
It's kind of a mix between like I don't know, Hunger Games and maybe Saw. The Saw movies.
Wow.
A little less gory, a little less gory, a little less violent. But that's kind of the thing. I don't know. What other shows? I don't know. One show that I'm watching that really, I mean, it's a fine show, but it bugs me a little bit, is Only Murders in the Building, which is a show that has, I'm going to forget everybody's name. Steve Martin. It's very Steve Martin-y. Martin Short and Selena Gomez. And they live in a building in New York, like a fancy building. And there's a murder in the building. And they start a podcast, a true crime podcast based on this crime in their building. And it's an okay show. I think it's worth checking out. But the way they talk about podcasting bugs me so much. Have you been bugged by sort of the mainstreamness of podcasting now, Gonz?
Mainstreaming a little bit, but I don't really, spend my time in the pop culture realm there.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I don't really notice it that much.
They talk about it as if it's like they talk about it as if it were show business, like as if it were Hollywood. Like, we're making a podcast. And let's talk to this.
I mean, I think that is true now, though. Like culturally,
I think it is too, and I think it just bugs me a bit. I don't know.
We're so early. It's like the band, the early band, and now they're huge, and everyone knows about it.
Well, there's so much work associated with doing a successful podcast. Like, it is so much work.
Yeah, it is.
And it's being presented as like, oh, this easy thing anyone can do. And yes, anybody can start a podcast. But that's why most podcasts don't make it past 50 episodes, is because by the time you get to 50, it is a grind.
Yeah. It is a grind. Yep.
It is a total daily grind to be consistent and long term with podcasting. And they talk about it in the show in sort of the context of like, you can make $1 billion, you can make $30 million, you could be a celebrity by starting a podcast. I'm like, yeah, but that is sort of playing on the same lie that show business has always played on.
Yeah.
Which is like, anywho, I don't know why I've got off.
You can be Joe Rogan. No, you love the show. You're much more in line. I don't have anything to recommend.
Yeah.
The most recent thing I've watched is Higglytown Heroes.
Is that a children's show?
Yes. There's little people made out of they look like bowling balls or bowling pins.
Oh, sounds.
And there's babies.
Really,
yeah. What else
really
is what else is in Higglytown Heroes? Funky houses.
You got to get that baby on the microphone, man.
Okay. What say something about Higglytown Heroes. She got the shies.
She's
I'm not shy.
Oh,
okay. Tell us about Higglytown Heroes.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's shy.
Not right now.
Not right now. Okay.
Not right now. Okay. She says, I can't tell you. I can't give away the content for my podcast, Dad.
It's a secret? Okay.
Okay.
No one knows about it.
No one knows about Higglytown Heroes?
Nope.
Oh, all right.
10 out of 10.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have any other recommendations. Again, I'm not necessarily trying to recommend shows because everybody has like a sort of different view on that. But those are the ones that I've found interesting in sort of tracking what's going on in the world.
What's your favorite movie ever?
I used to have an answer for that. I was a big Wes Anderson fan. So The Life Aquatic.
That makes a lot of sense because the first time I ever laid eyes upon you, maybe not the very first time, but one of the first times, I think it was, we might be doxing a little bit, but you were in there was some event where it was a public thing. You to go up on stage and receive a thing, and you were in that outfit, like the Bill Murray.
Oh yeah. No, that used to be like my main fashion
statement.
Touchstone. Yes,
Yeah.
was dressing like I was in the movie.
Like
The
you're
Life
in the.
Aquatic.
Like, I remember thinking, is he pretending to be that, or is that just like him?
No, yeah. When I say that movie was very influential, I mean it was very influential in so many of my life choices at the time. Still a great movie. I'm trying to think if there's maybe like a more recent accessible film that is it's my faves. I don't know. I just got super into Marvel recently.
Yeah, you
so
did.
I'm just really into Marvel.
DC's going woke as of this recording.
What do you mean?
You didn't hear about Superman?
I saw somebody ask a question about it.
Yeah, the Superman.
Superman's a girl?
No, it's a boy, but yeah, he's going sword fighting.
Oh, it's a gay boy.
I gotta keep it real milky here.
That was almost worse than just saying that it was a gay boy.
Daddy.
Yes,
that was grotesque, Gonzo.
What? No, yeah, okay.
Are you talking to me or the baby?
I don't know anymore. I think we're done with the show.
I think we've squeezed as much out of this. We're sorry. We're sorry about this, everybody.
Yeah.
But there you go. So there's our first round at a Q&A episode. Maybe to give everybody more, a little. Well, no, I mean, I don't know. I would say like send in more questions, but we're not planning on doing another one of these anytime soon. So thank you to everybody who responded to the call on Twitter. And I don't know if people really want us to do more of these, we can. But don't worry, we're not expecting it.
Yep.
Are you playing guitar now?
No, I'm playing a song that was sent to us. It's the Yeshua's Promise, the guitar work that was.
Oh, yeah. This was from a few episodes ago?
Yeah. Just thought it'd be a nice piece to go out
nice. Okay, sounds good. Well, how should we end this?
I don't know. I mean, we have a tagline. That might help.
Yeah, okay. Well, thanks, everybody. Gonz is still on vacation, and we will be back on, Friday the 22nd. And thank you for those who continue to support the show during this week off we're taking. It's very, very valuable, very touching. And we still got bills to pay, so we appreciate that very much. And again, apologies for interrupting the natural flow of Canary Cry News Talk on a weekly basis, but we know you guys will give us grace and understanding, and hopefully the supplemental episodes that we put out will, I don't know, at least show you how sorry we are. But we're going to take a breather and we'll get back to normal. As usual, remember you can go to canarycry.party. You'll see buttons for becoming a producer, joining the mailing list.
Okay, please stop.
And supporting the show in all sorts of ways, like following us across the internet as we continue to do what we do. All right, any last words, Gonz?
I think that's it. Thank you, and apologies for the distractions.
Unofficial. Well, it is official. Just, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Thanks, everybody, for listening to this episode of Canary Cry News Talk, Gonz with the Wind Q&A special. Make sure to tune in next time. But until then, think outside the cage.